Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Skahill. I am a cyber operations planner within the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, or JCDC, within the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And I'm joined here today by my colleague, Trevor Parks, who's a fellow cyber operations planner at JCDC. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the high-risk communities protection effort that we did starting in March of last year to support the cyber defense of civil society. So the reason that we're supporting civil society and really focusing on bolstering their cyber defense is because a lot of these organizations are frequently targets of activity by advanced persistent threat actors because of who they are and what they do. And at the same time, a lot of these organizations are under-resourced and don't necessarily have the resources to invest significantly in cybersecurity or attract and retain cybersecurity professionals. And they also haven't necessarily received support from the government. And so this effort was really focused on how we can bolster their cyber defense through partnership with industry and civil society partners. So just to give you an idea of who exactly we are trying to serve, we're looking at the nonprofits and civil society organizations, as well as the activists, human rights defenders, and journalists that work for them that might be targets of advanced cyber threats. So once our PowerPoint gets back up and running, I will pass it back over to Trevor to talk a little bit about some of the threats that these communities are facing and just the significance of why we at CISA and our industry partners need to be doing more to support them.
Thanks a lot, Emily. As Emily said, my name is Trevor Parks, and of course, we would not be having a cybersecurity talk here if we didn't have some technical difficulties along the way. It wouldn't be appropriate. So yeah, we want to talk about some of the personal cybersecurity strategies that we set up to help these high-risk communities, right? And we want to make sure that they are understanding what those cybersecurity threats are and who their organizations are, because you have to remember, a lot of these communities don't have the resources and the understanding of the cybersecurity landscape like a lot of professionals do, right? We want to make sure that they are able to gain the knowledge to be able to implement a lot of these cybersecurity strategies for themselves. And most importantly, because we don't expect anyone to be able to remember this, where those resources are so they can go and find that help and be able to go through and make themselves better. Right? So some of the things that we're going to talk to a little bit is why the cybersecurity matters, what they can do to create that cyber hygiene defense, and then what to do next. Oh, this thing is a little sticky. All right, so who are the threat actors out there? So there are a lot of different types of threat actors out there. FBI keeps a lot of tabs on who these different groups are and how they kind of identify them. The most important thing to know is for these high-risk communities, it could be any one of these threat actors, right? They're not always necessarily particular, or based on who the high-risk community is, their actions could be drawing the attention of a specific type of APT. Oh, this is a dangerous clicker. All right, so one good example of a high-risk community is this faith-based group, Relentless Church, who got hit by the Lockbit ransomware group, right? It's a very big, high-profile APT threat actor out there that was able to get into this faith-based group's system with the ransomware, and not only did they ransom and take over their networks and systems, but they also exfiltrated a lot of different data types that even after the ransom was paid, the Lockbit APT actors still had all of this information on this faith-based group that they could use for subsequent attacks or selling it on the black market. Wow. This is going to be every slide. So what are some of the things that we want to make sure that we're paying attention to, right? So how do these threat actors work, right? We learned through making sure that we study a lot of these APTs that there's a very common to a fake site. See if I can just do one slide this time. All right. So the goals of these APTs when it comes to these high-risk communities, right? We have noticed that a lot of their goals have to do with besmirching or discrediting some of these high-risk communities based off of their works, like if they have opposing political beliefs or social beliefs, right? Financial theft in the case of ransomware, right? There could even be intimidation and suppression of speech. And also, they can sometimes try to get spyware to monitor the activity of these groups that can lead them to later nefarious activities or trying to find who else that they work with within their organization, right? Access to other organizations that they may have interest in, right? So what can we do about this? What can the individual do about this to protect themselves from these high threat actors, right? So, looking around here, there are a lot of companies here that offer enterprise level cybersecurity, right? But you don't get that at home. And a lot of these organizations don't have the resources to reach out to these companies and be able to purchase their products, right? So we wanted to make sure that at the very least, they understood what they had at their fingertips so they could begin to implement what we consider to be good cyber hygiene practices to limit their exposure to these APTs. Oh, well, if they try to get that back up, I'll talk a little bit about what you can find inside of these resources, right? We take a look at the types of devices people use in their home, right? Their personal phones, their personal laptops, right? The operating systems, their software, their home Wi-Fi network, right? And we look for ways at each of these points, like as an attack surface of there's already some level of cybersecurity controls in these tools, but a lot of people who aren't technologically educated don't necessarily know what these tools do or how to implement the security controls. So we've gone through and listed out a lot of ways that people can just go in and make sure that they are being safe with their devices. Right? And that includes both physical and logical, so your hardware and your software, making sure that you're being safe so that you have a holistic cyber hygiene defense. Right? So again, we don't expect everyone to be able to remember all this, right? So we did put this together in a package, right? And I think Emily's going to talk a little bit about what comes next.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor. So essentially through this planning effort, what we ended up doing was creating what we call the High Risk Communities Protection webpage, on CISA.gov, so you can go to this link to actually access it. Or if you're here in person, we also have some QR codes for you to scan, so you can come up to us after the presentation. But essentially, we have Project Upskill, which is a series of cyber hygiene guides based on the topics that Trevor just talked about, so that people who don't necessarily have a technological background can really understand what are easy, actionable steps that I can take to improve my cyber hygiene. The second resource that we have is the Cybersecurity Resources for High-Risk Communities webpage, and this is a collection of all of the tools that we've compiled through partnership with our industry partners, as well as other civil society organizations that are focused on digital security for activists, human rights defenders, and the like. And we've compiled them all here so that it's like a one-stop shop for you to access resources that will help to improve cybersecurity. And then the final piece is our Cyber Volunteer Resource Center. And we actually just did a panel on this at RSA yesterday, but really what we're trying to do here is raise folks' awareness around what cyber volunteer programs are. There are an increasing number of programs at universities and in other places across the country where either industry folks or students can volunteer their time to work with under-resourced organizations to help them do cybersecurity assessments and understand how to improve their cyber hygiene and be better postured to respond to an incident. And so if you go visit this page, you can understand a little bit more about how you can volunteer if you are someone with cyber expertise, or if you're an under-resourced organization, how you can reach out to one of those cyber volunteer programs for support. So that's really where we are right now. And yeah, please go check out the website if you're interested in learning a little bit more. And then finally, I think the one thing that I'll highlight is tomorrow we'll be releasing a blog that will talk a little bit more about what industry can do to support high-risk communities as well. And I think beyond cyber hygiene and the guidance that we're releasing, which really puts the burden on the individual to improve their cybersecurity, we'd also really encourage industry to do some things to just make it easier for individuals who don't have that technical kind of baseline to be able to be deploying products secure right out of the box. And so you'll be able to see our blog post tomorrow that talks more about some of those action items that industry can take to help support civil society. So thank you so much for listening to our tech talk, and if you have any questions, please feel free to come up to us after the presentation.